My name is Aimee Tollan. I'm one of the directors at Breaking Convention. For those of you who don't know, we are a registered charity and we hold Europe's largest conference on psychedelic research, which happens every 2 years in London. The last one was 2019 in August, and the next one will be next year, 2021. Breaking Convention is a place where Kilindi connected with a lot of people, Darren, who's co-hosting this event, included. So Darren thought that it was apt that we hosted this special event, and that's when he invited those close to Kilindi to come along and share their stories with us to honour his memory. Darren first met Kilindi at the first Breaking Convention in 2011. That was an event that really changed my life. I was completely in awe that this event was happening at my university. Dave King, one of the founders, who was pivotal in starting Breaking Convention, was one of my friends. And he told me, oh, I'm going to put this event on at Kent. And I went along, and the rest is history. And it was at that one, I was just about to turn 21. And I remember seeing Kilindi for the first time in the auditorium on the last day, and he gave his really infamous bigger doses speech, and had a pretty big impact on me, and I think a really big impact on a lot of people there. And I think that was probably a lot of people in the UK's first introduction to him. And yeah, I mean, since then, after that event, I became more involved in the organisation of Breaking Convention, and have met up with Darren regularly, talking about all things psychedelics, in particular the lack of diversity in the psychedelic community, which has always kind of baffled me. And shout out, some of the speakers are in the audience tonight from that event, so thanks for your contribution. Kilindi then spoke at every Breaking Convention since the first one in 2011, and has contributed greatly over the years, for which we're all extremely grateful. And I would like to take this opportunity really to thank Darren for organising all the panels, especially the African Entheogenic ones. It really brought a fresh perspective to Breaking Convention. Big up, Darren. It wasn't only Kilindi that appeared on those panels, but also the speakers here today, so Ayana, Omolewa and Moudou, have all delivered compelling talks that I have had the privilege to attend, so thank you. I'd also like to thank them for appearing here today, especially as Kilindi's passing must be extremely fresh. I know that losing a loved one can impact, speaking publicly while going through the grief of that can be really, really hard. So thank you very much. I know that your presence here will greatly impact those who are tuning in. I'm very grateful for that. So thank you for being here. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Darren, who will share his story and also formally introduce the other speakers here today. So yeah, thank you all for being here. If you need to chat to me about anything going on, just do it in the chat down the bottom, and also questions. So yeah, over to you, Darren, and thank you.
Oh, thank you, Aimee, and thank you everyone for attending and being here, being present. Big up the family that's out there too. I guess we all know why we're here. Aimee, amazing introduction just into, I believe it was like Kilindi's first presence in the UK, really focused on psychedelics at that time in 2011. And that's when I first met the brother. And since then, we've built a very strong relationship in just trying to, as you know, what I call it, spreading the spores in the UK and Europe. And I felt that because of the relationship we had built with Breaking Convention over the years, it would be the appropriate platform to really support people in acknowledging the work and the legacy of the brother, what he was doing pre me engaging with him. There's just still a lot that people are not aware of what the brother brought to the table. And I thought it would be no better than the people that were around him and lived and worked with him to share some of that. So, and that's what today was about, what is about. And as you mentioned, Aimee, I first met Baba in 2011 at the Breaking Convention, and always shared a story just as far as being aware of Baba's work and in coming to the UK in the past, but that focus being of a martial arts. As we know, for the most part in the UK, we knew Baba for his work in African martial arts. And it was a few months before, maybe a month or two before we actually came to the UK for that Breaking Convention in 2011, the first time I actually got to speak with him directly. And I just had my first entheogenic experiences. And, you know, he was very keen to support me on my journey, but he was like, look, you need to get down to this conference. He was just like, it's in the UK. He goes like, I don't know what you got planned, but, you know, get there if you can. And I remember at the time, finances and the distance and all the rest of it brought initial challenges, I thought, in actually getting there. And attending, just like Aimee and many others, it was a life-changing experience. There was a lot going on inside the building. There was a couple hundred speakers for over the weekend. And, you know, I don't know, 500, maybe to 1,000 people attended over the weekend. And what I do recall outside of me getting the downloads and the insight that I got was that Baba was the only Black man speaking at the conference that I recalled. And for the most part, I believe I was like probably the only Black male in the audience for the most part in most of the rooms. That's how I felt. And, you know, during that time, I was, you know, asking a lot of questions of the speakers as to, you know, the role. I was interested in psychedelics and wanted to know more about the role of psychedelics by way of the Caribbean or Africa. You know, there's a lot of information being shared that week. And Baba was the only one speaking on this subject. And then, you know, prior to him sharing his talk, which he was in, I'm not sure if he was invited to speak, but whatever he shared at the talk itself, on you know, at that weekend, he then at the end of the weekend, there's a panel. As Aimee said, it was a famous panel where Kilindi at the end stood up and said, you know, you guys need to do higher doses. And he got a standing ovation. I know it might seem like, well, what does that mean? And at the time, everybody in the room totally got it, just based upon the knowledge and information Baba was sharing over the weekend. For me, he was just like one of the most humblest speakers, but we was fully aware that he had the most knowledge, or a lot more knowledge of the experiences than a lot of the people that were actually talking on the stage. So not that he was calling people out, you know, if you keep it, he was calling people out and just bringing an awareness to, you know, that, you know, we're all leaders in our own right. And, you know, that we should be aware of, you know, people who just stick their toe in, so to speak, and step out just to say they've had an experience. And those are the people leading the movement. So, you know, it was controversial, but at the same time pioneering. And for me personally, sitting in the audience, I was actually sitting right next to him when he stood up and said it. So I felt very powerful in that moment. But what he done, it gave me a lot of confidence. And as I say to many people now, when Baba shared and always shared, what I appreciated about him at that time was that he didn't buck dance, skip to anyone else's tune. You know, a lot of people when they're in different audiences, their script changes, man. And what I appreciated is that he was banging like I've heard him bang before on the DVDs, and it gave me a lot of courage. And from that day onwards, I decided, although I wasn't speaking at that time, I was just in the audience like everybody else. But it was from that day onwards I decided that I was going to support Baba in any time that he came to the UK or Europe, and helping him to get what he needed to get out there, simply because he was the only one that I was aware of speaking our language for that diverse community. And at the same time, from what I understood, a lot of the times he was making his own way. You know, he wasn't actually being invited to these talks. You know, he was basically kicking down doors and, you know, sneaking in through the back door. You know, and in some cases, I guess some people, you know, he made them nervous. You know, he shook up places. So with that said, I said, that's not a problem, bro. In the UK or Europe, at least, I'm going to be the mouthpiece. I'll be the person knocking down the doors and making sure that people acknowledge who you are, what your work's about, and so forth. And as you know, the rest is history. Done many works since then in the UK. I've got the opportunity to travel to Detroit. But during that journey, I got to meet some amazing people. And some of those people are here with us today. As Aimee said, all of them have spoken at the Breaking Convention. So that's just a little introduction to how I met Baba. And I'm now going to introduce Ayana Iyi, and she can share with you who she is, and as well as, you know, her connection with Baba.
Well, wholeness and high vibrations to everybody. I'd like to thank you, Darren, and thank you, Aimee, and also the Breaking Convention for this opportunity to speak about a very great man. You know, I'm sure if you've heard me speak before, I do tell the story real quick that we met when we were 19 years old. I'm 65 now, so that was quite a while ago. And we met at a martial arts class. That was our connection. You know, I was a young budding martial artist, and Baba Kilindi was doing some beautiful forms over there in the corner at the dojo, and I just wanted to know what he was doing. And instead of doing hardcore taekwondo, he was doing something beautiful and fluid, and being from a dance background, that attracted me. So I approached the young brother and I asked him about his art form, and he was able to give me some information. And that was our beginning. 25 years later, we decided to become one and blend families and energies and create a dynamic business venture, travel partner. My life with Kilindi has been the most adventurous one that I could possibly talk about. Boy, could I tell you some stories. So just, traveling the multiverse with him on the different journeys that we've had has just been life-altering and life-changing for me and the community. So we go a long ways back, and I just feel that, each time we've left and come back through life and death, we found one another. But for some reason, I feel like when I go this time and come back, Baba is not going to find me this time. I believe that he has truly ascended and that he is a celestial being, and that the information that he imparted upon us, he did his work here. And when you do your work and you complete your work and your mission, you don't have to come back and do it again. So that's my time with Baba Kilindi. So I will continue. So being Ayana Iyi, I identify strongly as a witch. And I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, because I can say that term or that title loudly without worrying about retribution from that. And what I do with that work is I help women step into their own power and absorb the energy of the planet, of the multiverse, by taking psilocybin, entheogens, that just enhanced who I was. It was always there, but 20 years ago, Baba said, "Here, take this." And I was like, okay, I'll take it. And it was just 5 dried grams, but that was the course that changed my life, because what that did for me was bring up and out who I really was. And the teachings of Baba Kilindi was always be more than what you are, be more than who you are. And that was a challenge to be that. We look around and we go through our everyday humdrum life. We get up, we go to work, we come home, we kiss the wife, the husband, we kick the dog, we put the kids to sleep, we get up. It's just very, very repetitive, but when you step into the world that Baba Kilindi offered to the community, now, yes, psychedelics have been around a very long time, but they're on the planet at this time in the last 15, 20 years for a reason, because look at where we're at right now. So it's very, very necessary that this work is as loud as it is right now, because this is what we need as a people to move forward, to heal the planet. And I believe that that is the whole point of this. I mean, not only do we heal ourselves, but we heal the planet. Of course, Kilindi's journeys were a lot different from a lot of ours, because he was a high doser. I've only gone to 15 grams. He has always told me, Ayana, you have not even touched the tip of it if you don't go 20 and beyond. And I was like, okay, I'm coming in there, but I haven't made that yet. So his trips were so much deeper, and, he traveled the multiverse and he went way deep, a lot further than a lot of us, and so when I say things like women connect through the womb and that we're here to heal, and, he was like, okay, I'm out fighting a war. So, but that's the balance. That's the balance that we have sought as a man and a woman doing the work. We're going to heal and you're going to fight. And so that's the way it's been, and that's how it's always going to be, even in the multiverse. But being a witch, it is a profound belief of mine that we connect with the soul of nature. And by connecting with the soul of nature, the power of plants and the beautiful fungi, nature just opens up its gifts to you and shares her most intimate secrets with you. and you can tap in. You start to listen to the sound of the wind, and you understand the language. You can sit at the water and understand the language of the water. You have reverence for all life. And, you know, of course, to be a witch is to be a healer and a giver and a seeker. And if you're going to make that walk, you want to make that walk with honor, integrity, and light. And I just know that psychedelics has brought that energy up and out of me. And so it allows me to serve the community that way, as a leader. And we know that leaders serve. So I take that and I wear that honor very proudly, and keeping in step with Baba Kilindi. And oh boy, did you have to have some big steps to keep up with him. But in keeping up with him, you learn an awful lot. It's like when you deal with Kilindi on those levels, like say when you would go to his martial arts class, you come in there, they're doing some amazing things, but it's like you get hit with a cold bucket of water, not literally, but that he just throws it at you and you're going to get it. You're going to get it before you get out of there. You know, you could be at the most advanced class, but you're going to get it before you get out of there. Now, what happened with me in martial arts and Baba Kilindi was, I remember being in class and I was like, please do that like 15 or 20 more times so that I can get it, man. You know, but after taking psilocybin and telling the mushrooms, look, I know this is inside of me. This is a latent energy that I have because I've always been interested in it. And I need to get it. I need to get it right away. And I asked that of the mushrooms to reveal that part of myself. So I took the grams. I went back to class maybe in about a few days later, but when he did the movements and he explained how to do it, I seen it immediately. I seen the science, I seen the beauty, and that was only enhanced by psychedelics. I am certain of it. So through mushrooms, through entheogens, through the travels that he's taken me on, and, you know, having been there with you guys in London and speaking on the things that we were speaking about and the diversity and talking to the different speakers and what they had to say, it has just been a learning process. It has been a privilege and an honor. And I'm going to say it like this, you guys. It has been a privilege and an honor to be one of Kilindi's wives, because Kilindi was a polygamist. There were two others in the relationship that recently passed in 2016. I know you've heard him mention Kai Wingo as his wife, and she was in the relationship. So at one point there was three of us, and Kilindi being a man of power, I'm certain that a lot of you men do understand that. And again, an honor and a privilege to be his wife. So if there are any questions, I mean, that's pretty much my journey, you know, and it's going to continue. I'm going to continue his work because that is the energy and the message that he got to me after life was over. His physical life was, Ayana, continue the work. And it is my pleasure and my honor for as long as I can to continue this work and take it to where he wants it to go, where it will go. And with the help of people like Moudou and Omolewa and Darren and the group here and the psychonauts all over, we will merge as one and create a whole new existence on this planet. You met my grandbaby, Aimee Amore, being a mushroom baby. We want to change the whole dynamic. We want to bring in more mushroom babies because they got a lot of work to do. We have left some mess for these children, and I guarantee you these children are going to clean it up, especially being introduced to psilocybin at an early age. I think I'm done.
Thank you, Ayana. If there's any questions, you can either there's a raise your hand function, or you can just type in the chat and I can spotlight you. Okay, so I think that's Karen there. So you can unmute yourself and ask if you want, Karen. Is it giving you, or I can unmute you?
Unmute.
There we go.
Hi.
You can ask now. Hi.
Hi. Hello, Ayana. Thank you for speaking. I just
Hey,
wanted. Hello. I just would love you to talk more about that point, introducing children to mushrooms, and just to expand on what you began there, please.
Well, you know, in 2015, I believe it was 2015, I believe it was 2015, that we had the Women in Entheogens Conference. And there, excuse me, guys, leave. Excuse me, that is Amor coming through the door, and I apologize for that. 2015, we had the Women in Entheogens Conference, and we wanted to tap into the birth energy, the energy of women who were pregnant taking entheogens, the women who were in labor and delivery taking the entheogens, and the women who are actually breastfeeding taking the entheogens. So that's a bit, you know, having the knowledge and the education to understand that this can only enhance the birthing experience. So my daughter, she took 3 grams of mushrooms maybe in her early 2nd month of pregnancy. And so, you know, the cells are breaking down and opening up and connecting and doing all that they do. So the journey started there with us, you know, and we've been just kind of watching Amor and her abilities, and Baba and the baby had a very close connection because he understood her mindset, some of the things she would say. So we knew that this energy, if it did it for us, and we're here on the planet already, what would it do to the child that's growing in utero? So it wasn't an experiment. We didn't know. There wasn't a lot of data on this. We were deciding that we would make the data and make it available to others. And I can promise you, you know, there's a young woman who's pregnant right now who just took 6 grams with her, and, you know, her baby isn't due until later on in the year, but she took 6 grams and she got in contact with the baby. The baby was able to give information at that time. So we want to bring that forward. Now, I haven't actually talked to anyone who has actually been in labor and delivered while they were on psilocybin. I believe that would be Omolewa's area where she could talk to you about that. And then the woman who is breastfeeding the child to give the food or the medicine. I'm going to say food. I'm going to say food to the child when they're breastfeeding. All of these are new studies, but the children coming forth now, it's the way they think. I asked my granddaughter, I said, what is your favorite color, Amor? She says the rainbow. She says, after Baba passed, she just kind of looked up at me. We were just sitting there, just, you know, just hanging out. And she says, Umi, which is what she calls me. She says, Umi, Baba is still teaching. I said, how do you know that, Amor? She says, because he's whispering in everybody's ear. And I just thought that was just so profound of a 4-year-old to say that. Also, she said after he passed, maybe about 2 or 3 days, because she was here when he passed. She was here in the home. She knew what was going on. And she said, don't worry, Umi, they're just rebuilding him. So now we're talking about a 4-year-old, but we're talking about a 4-year-old who came through psilocybin, you know? So that's what we want to enhance in these children. They got some work to do, you know, and if we give them that edge, we put them out there right now, what do you think is going to happen? You know, what do you think is going to happen? So it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you, Ayana. It was great to meet her more earlier. Super cute. We all met her on camera just before everyone came in. Joe has a question, so I'm just going to go to Joe and I'm going to unmute him. Hi, Joe.
Hi everyone. Darren might or might not remember, I did a yoga class with him in East London, trying to kind of push him forward. You might remember that. Yeah, I mean, I've got so many questions. One very basic question: is the Detroit conference going to have a virtual component where people can join from, you know, kind of globally, or is it purely kind of in-person ticket only? Is the first question. And then, you know, without, you know, I guess it's a kind of coming out sort of in a way. If someone like me, who's kind of pretty kind of mainstream or considered themselves quite mainstream in the past, wants to make that kind of transition into, you know, I've worked with various kind of plant medicines, and I remember Kilindi, I don't need medicine because I'm not sick. And I was very lucky to have met him at the event in London last year. And it was almost like don't meet your heroes, because I crumbled totally and was like a sort of gibbering wreck when I met him. And I had all these things that I wanted to ask him, but then it all just came out really crap. But at least I got to, you know, I got to meet the man and feel his presence, and was truly humbled in the experience. And I kind of said to him, well, what does a kind of an ordinary person who wants to kind of look into these, non-ordinary states and go deep, how what's the best way? Is it going to go incremental? Is it, because I've got to a point where I feel kind of there's a sort of safety element from my perspective. Like, I don't want to terrify the neighbours. I don't want to kind of, go deeper and then start kind of running around and not not being kind of competent in myself. So is there any kind of advice to, what sort of protocols to employ, potentially, or just kind of any kind of advice at that level?
Joe, I want to answer your first question, and I'll let somebody else take on those other questions. But in terms of the conference, no, it will not be streamed, but we will be videoing each and every person who will be speaking in the breakout rooms, in the plenary sessions. And then from that, we will create a way for you all to be a part of that conference via the DVDs that will probably be put out there in reference to the conference. So we're hoping, people are buying tickets and they're coming and they are looking forward to communing. We are sociable people. We need to be around others. We do understand that the dynamics of what's going on in the world is causing issues in terms of us socializing, but this will be to raise the vibration of healing. This is to, synergistically speaking, we're going to be doing work at this conference to do that very thing, which is to raise that vibration, to heal this planet with us coming together. So hopefully, you'll stay in touch with us and we can pass that DVD on to you. And your second question being set and setting, or, you spoke something about, you didn't want to run around and the neighbors be wondering what's going on. Well, set and setting is very important. And we do recommend a gatekeeper on some of those journeys that you take, especially if you, are new to the experience. Anybody else want to take that?
Darren, I think, did you have your hand up? You wanted to answer that.
Yeah, it wasn't to answer the question. But I'm glad it got out there. But it basically, what I wanted to do, guys, was to be clear that we're going to have a go around and then we open it up for the questions after the first introductions. Because like Joel's question would be better placed if once all four of us are open to answer the questions as well. I think some of the questions coming from people, unless they were specific to the person. So I wanted to introduce Moudou, introduce Omolewa, and then we can open it up for more questions, and then questions like Joe's can be posed to all of us, and then we can all give feedback to that, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah,
cool.
Sounds good. All right, well, back over to you,
Joe will
Darren.
be the first question. When we come back, we go to Joe's one, because I know both Moudou and Omolewa, and we can all, put our 5 cents in, basically.
Cool.
So with that said, I'd just like to introduce Brother Moudou. Again, I first met Moudou when I was in Detroit, on my first invitation to Detroit, and that's how we just got to connect as brothers. And a couple of years later, the brother was out over here in the UK laying foundations at the Breaking Convention. And again, like all three of the speakers, everybody I brought over basically has just killed it and smashed it. The feedback was positive. People are always inquiring as to when yourselves and some of the others are returning. So Moudou, I do know he's a student of Baba's in the martial arts, as well as it's supported you on your journey into the entheogenics. So without me sharing, you can share who you are and that connection that you have. Please take your mic off mute so we can hear you loud and clear, bro.
Okay, I'd like to start off saying peace, everybody. So good to see such a wide representation, because it reflects how Ahati Road or Kilindi Road, he didn't allow issues of geography and anything else to keep him from connecting with people. So I want to extend the greeting. I'll start off just explaining how I first met Kilindi. I first met Kilindi when I was, I believe, 19. And I, just like Mama Ayana, ironic, right? I was very active in the BLM movement, which is different than what it stands for today, which is Black Liberation Movement, which is a global Pan-African movement that focused on issues of liberation. And I would organize an annual conference called the Self-Determination Conference. And one of our focuses was self-defense. And of course, people and elders recommended, hey, you got to get this guy Kilindi. Well, at the time, I guess it was much different than today, because heavy thinkers or heavy movers or actors would avoid cameras, would avoid social media, would avoid pretty much any form of media, because there was a different mentality at that time. So just to get an audience with him was very hard, but he did show up at the conference. And when he showed up at the conference, he didn't really speak more so than he was grilling me, you know, and it was 3 other elders that were just grilling me. Who are you? Where you come from? What do you think about this? And I didn't understand where it was coming from. And the conference went well. And then months later, I began working at a school called the Entheogenic Institute, which is a school that Kilindi helped found out of his martial arts school. And part of me being hired was that interview. I didn't realize that these elder brothers were interviewing me to see if I was appropriate to teach at this institution. It was a Pan-African liberation school. So our focus was outside of the traditional curriculum, and you had to have a pretty good understanding of culture and the people. And so I was flattered that he endorsed me to be hired. And at that time, you know, I began to like organize on a deeper level with different organizations. And I was often asked to provide security for some of our elders who needed transportation, you know, their houses and things. And so once again, they recommended that I get with Kilindi and begin training. And so as we began doing martial arts, I would always ask Kilindi, like, you know, what is this about? And so at this point, this is when he began to unveil like the levels of this thing. You know, the first thing is that he explained to me, was like this BLM, or this Black Liberation Movement, is a human-centered movement, and that it's not exclusive of any other humans, but what it represents is a millennial, thousands of year fight over maintaining and preserving the human spirit, which was kind of mystical. And so he began to explain how there was just this historical trend in which humanity had been basically enslaved by the powers that be through corrupt priesthoods and other things, and that that this was a movement, and that he was just part of a lineage. He's part of a lineage, and part of his job was keeping that tradition alive. And that part of our tradition, or part of our responsibility, is keeping that tradition alive, which means that we had to be very versed in culture, ancient history, martial arts, you know, healing. I mean, you name it, we had to be versed. And that's what the challenge was. And he would often tell me, he said, you know, the phases are, you have to grow up, you know, then you have to show up. And then once you show up, you have to step up. And so this is pretty much my experience with him. A lot of times he would, you know, for early phase, he would spend time like breaking cultural or mental notions that we had about society and reality. And that was the grow up phase. And then the show up phase was him basically directing us to participate in community, whether it be, yeah, you need to go provide security for this person, or you need to go set up for this conference, or you need to go volunteer for this particular thing. And that was part of his tutelage. And then the grow up, show up, step up, at that phase, he began to challenge us to go and pursue those smaller or unknown facts of history, psychology, science, and things like that. And so in this, we began to have a great relationship, and he began to constantly challenge our notions of reality. So as a martial arts student, he would explain to us, he's, you know, one of the things he shared was that, you know, we start off doing hand-to-hand combat, then we advance to knives, then sticks, then long sticks, then other weapons. And what he was explaining to me, he said, the beginning student starts off with hand-to-hand and grappling because to them, the fight is physical. And as your understanding gets deeper, the distance between your combatant expands and the technique varies. And so eventually, when I asked him about trying to get to a high level of the school, he said, we train to fight the unseen, you know, those energies, those inner forces that dictate and control our behaviors and thoughts. And so that's when he introduced me to the science of the mushroom. And I'm sure many of you heard the story of how, you know, for about a year or so, I was under his tutelage, just grinding rice and mixing vermiculite, not knowing what it was about. And then once I mastered that technique, he began to direct me to begin watching people and making sure that they crossed over effectively. Then at a certain phase, he began to like invite me along with him to like do the research. And so I was blessed to go with him to the continent several times and seek out traditional groups that use these sacred plants and how they use them. And they also filled in the background, the historical concepts of this long fight that, you know, we've been in, that people don't understand. So when we talk about environmentalism, we talk about, you know, women's rights or any other oppressed group's rights, this all is encapsulated under a very long struggle for the human spirit that is much more deep and complicated than it seems. It's more like a Star Wars trilogy than what we can conceive. And so he explained to me that this fight exists on the physical and non-physical realms, and it exists throughout what we know as the universe. And part of this, our sojourn into the mushroom realm was to reclaim the spirit, identify those entities and energies that manipulate human spirit, and also to strengthen the human spirit, to reconnect it to where it was in ancient past. And so that's some of what I'll elaborate on in my presentation. But just to say, Kilindi was a very committed brother, and some people see like two realms. They see him as a martial artist or someone that dealt with the psilocybin, but in fact, it was all part of one system. It wasn't separate. And so in order to understand the system, you had to go through the whole thing, or at least have understanding of some of the aspects of it. And we just had such a great time traveling through the years, and him pushing me to higher development, and ultimately him, you know, letting me know that part of my job is to extend his tradition, to teach these lessons, to identify these hidden information, to share it with the world, and to keep this tradition going. Because basically he said that's what his job was. And I just was so grateful for the relationship that we had, that he was like a mentor, Jegna, but also a friend. And he would often be my counsel in the darkest times of my life. And when no one else was there, he'd be the one showing up. Like literally, he would be the one showing up when nobody else was there for me. And you know, one of the enduring lessons he would always teach is that our greatest duty is to fulfill the greatest potential of the people around us. And so whatever light you see in that person near you or next to you, your job is to cultivate that. And that we're responsible for each other's greatness. And more importantly is that the destruction of the false concepts of hierarchy. Because he was very adamant about saying there's no big me, there's no little you, we're all peers in this thing. And it was all about empowering all of us to walk, you know, in the strength and the light that that's our birthright. But to do so required cutting through a lot of cultural, political, social, historical BS and finding that core essence of what makes us great. So, I mean, I can keep going on and on. We had many great adventures, many great laughs. You know, I definitely miss him and his tutelage. But he taught me how to walk as a man, and to be able to be confident in your own self and not be concerned about necessarily appeasing other people's viewpoints. And more importantly, he taught me just to appreciate the fact that there is no non-existence, you know, and so to relax and understand that it's all a featherbed landing at the end anyway, and to go hard understanding that. But with that, I'm gonna stop, and I'll allow the floor for Miss Omolewa. I was just one of many people he touched.
Thank you, Moudou, for sharing that with us. I'm just going to hand the floor back over to Darren.
Nice. Yes, thank you, Aimee. Thank you, Moudou. Appreciate the sharing, bro. And yeah, we'll come back again, like I said, and be able to ask Moudou specific questions after the next speaker, who I'll introduce, Omolewa, the Entheogenic Midwife. Again, Omolewa was one of the speakers at the Breaking Convention a few years back. And like I said, you came, since when you came, you spread the spores. And to this day, I still get people inquiring and curious about things that you touched on and shared with the people. And I still know, like everybody here, like people just don't know what we bring to the table, you know, who we was inspired by and what we bring. But I'd just like for you to just share who you are and what you bring to the table and how you connect with Baba also.
Greetings to my strong and indigenous family and friends. I'm Omolewa, the Entheogenic Midwife, was the name that was given to me by Baba Kilindi. I live in Jamaica right now. And this event,
I want to jump in. I don't know. I'm finding it real hard to hear as everyone, I'm looking at people's faces.
Like I can't believe.
Omolewa, if you can hear me.
I've met Baba really just glimpses of him throughout the Detroit community and through Instagram.
Maybe try without
Let me try
the video, or try without
I can hear.
the video.
Can you guys hear me?
We can't hear you that well,
Hello?
but perhaps, yeah, try without your video and it might work better, because it's better to hear you than not at all. Try now.
Hello?
I mean, it's just very, it's very in and out. It's really hard.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, that's better. Maybe try now without the video, and then
Hello?
Yeah, go now, because we can hear you a lot better. And if it cuts out again, then we'll have to jump back in. But I think try without the video. I think that was what the issue was. Yeah, for those people in the audience, she's tuning in from Jamaica.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly?
Not clearly. She's tuning in from Jamaica, so I don't think the connection is
so sorry.
Very good. Give it another couple of goes. Try again now.
Yes, please forgive me. I live in Jamaica, so I haven't had a chance to really process this with family and friends. I can't believe that.
Do you think a phone call will work better?
Yeah, maybe we'll open it up to questions, and then if anyone has got any experience with how she can maybe tune in with a bad connection, then please let me know in the chat, and then we can maybe get her to tune in with just a phone call or something. That's such a shame. yeah, let's open it up to questions. And
so Aimee, can you hear me? Have you heard? Yeah.
yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear
So
you,
what I'm
Darren.
thinking, if
Yeah.
we let Omolewa adjust her stuff there, and what we can do is move to a few questions. And if we start off with Joe's question,
Yeah.
I would like to pose his question to Moudou as a student and someone who's been a gatekeeper in the community. I think he would be probably best placed to answer Joe's initial question.
Yeah. Do you want to remind Moudou what the question was?
Joe?
Or shall I go to Joe?
Moudou, can you unmute? Are you there? Can you hear?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just.
You remember the question from Joe, Moudou? Do you remember the question from Joe?
Basically, I know that someone who he wants to go into that realm and he wants to make sure it's done in a safe manner and not, I guess, cause drama for the neighbors. And so the reality of the matter, Joe, is knowledge of who you are. Like, we know who we are and how we react. And some people don't have the blessing of having a watcher. And many people have to be that self-initiator. And so part of that means that, one, you want to make sure, as you probably heard, setting is safe. It's a place that you're familiar with, very familiar with, a place that you're comfortable with, a place that's safe, not a bunch of, swords and knives or fire pits and things. A place that will limit the amount of outdoor interference or distractions, whether it's car horns, sirens, people walking up and down the stairs, because that will take your attention away. And then you understanding that yourself. I know it sounds weird, but for those people who go into that realm, there's a certain part of yourself that has existed before you, when you were 2 years old. And that's the self that will come out in these realms. And I would say your best point is to try to re-identify with that self. You know yourself, and more than likely you're not going to go out and, jump on a car or, set a trash can on fire or do anything crazy. So be confident and feel confident. And if you feel that anxiety rising, just realize it's a trip and you will return home, and that's the biggest thing that people come across, is that when they're in that realm, time stretches so far and so long that if you're not familiar with that realm, you believe you're stuck and that you've been there for 10 years and you're never coming back home. And so the guiding thing is just to remember, you will come home, the sun will rise, and you're fine. And the other thing to realize is that you are in a totally different dimensional spiritual state. And so those people who are in a normal waking state will not understand you. They will not interpret your love or whatever you want to share with them properly. And that's something that you shared the day after and not during the event. But also have faith and just know that you'll be safe. Take those precautions. Don't overdo it. Don't feel the need to try to, take 20 grams. You can start off with a small dose, see how you react, and increase. And this is the best way. And the mushroom will respect you for approaching it in a reverent way.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Joe? Have you got anything more to add? You can unmute yourself and add more if you want.
Yeah, that was pretty much what Kilindi said to me at the time, So yeah, it's just one of those ones, you just want to make sure that everyone around you is safe. You've got responsibilities to children and so forth. So it's just that it's such a big step, to go from, to go to those sorts of levels, So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for your input, and appreciate it.
And let me just jump in, Joe. The school of thought and what Kilindi taught, he didn't talk about taking big steps. It was, for me, directly, he was very clear about wherever you are, you're taking small steps towards that place. So if you're somebody who's doing 3 grams, you don't next week go and do 20 grams. That wasn't the school, that wasn't the teaching. The teaching was, if you're 3 grams, then you go to maybe 4 or 5. Then you go from, you feel like you're 4 or 5, then you work your way up, So it's, you're always pacing yourself. He made it really clear that it wasn't a race. It wasn't based upon, I'm taking more than you. It's you interfacing with yourself. So ultimately, I had the same similar questions that you had, and asking Kilindi, and I got the same answers that Moudou got, and the same answers, you know, that because it's, you know, the way he approached it in that essence, it was just that. And ultimately, that fear or those concern of what your neighbours are going to say or you doing this is just a fear of yourself, you know, and that's what you've got to work on. That's what he would have told me as well, I believe.
Omolewa is back online. Should we try again? Can you hear me? Omolewa, are you there? Yeah, it's. Try it again a little bit. And just stay in the same place and.
Okay. Maybe I'll try calling in.
Yeah, maybe try calling in. Have you got to Darren's? And then we could try and put you on loudspeaker. It's a long shot, but we can try. Are you happy to do that, Darren? Should we try it?
Yeah, either or, whatever works best.
And you're already connected on WhatsApp.
Better?
No, not really. It's still very in and out. Damn it. Well, should we open up to more questions? No.
So this is what I think. Yeah, maybe Aimee, if you liaise with Omolewa in the chat and see what you can do there, I'll hold the space now. And what I wanted to do is just extend off Joe's question when we can open up for more questions. But I wanted to allow both Moudou and Ayana to just touch on this, because everybody in the UK that I speak to, when they approach me in relation to Kilindi, you know, they really focus on this high dose thing, you know, like, you know, Kilindi's the high dose guy. And, you know, many people I understand just don't really get it. They don't really get it, you know. And I would like for you just to share what, from your experience in rolling with the man. I know you may not have had the high doses that Baba had, but what was that about? What, you know, what was that in essence of? Please share, and we can start with Moudou or Ayana, whoever would like to just touch on that.
I'll step in, Moudou, for a minute, okay? Me being, you know, he probably wouldn't want me to share this, but he's not here. So I'm going to share when he would take a high dose, he would stand in front of the mirror and he would grab a handful and a handful, and he would put it in his mouth, almost like eating popcorn, right? A big handful here and a big handful there. I don't know what the mirror energy was about, but he would watch himself eat all of these mushrooms. And it just frightened me. And I said, you know what? I'm about to leave and go get me a hotel room, because I know it's about to be on and popping when he would take those high doses. But I just remember specifically when he took the 40 grams, it was when Kai Wingo was in a coma, and he said, Ayana, I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull her out. That was his whole purpose of taking such a grand high dose at that time. And so on that journey, he was hoping to bring her up out of that coma. Well, in fact, she came to him in that space and pulled him out, because he went so far in. He said he got stuck in a puzzle. He got stuck in a very deeper, darker place than you could ever imagine. And Kai came through and she said, I've honored you and I've listened to you and I've learned from you, and I gave you my children and I gave you myself, and I need you to come up out of this place. So he went in to save her or to get her, but in fact, she came and she got him out of there. And he said it just gave him a whole nother level of respect for the psychonaut that she was, in terms of him taking that high dose. He didn't talk a whole lot about the other journeys that he took, I heard more about those journeys when I listened to him on the podcast and at different lectures, as opposed to us sitting here and talking about it. You know, he would take those high doses, and then the next day, it's as if he didn't even need any sleep. He would just get up and go through his day like it was a regular day. Most people got to sleep the rest of the day. They can't get it together. But Baba Kilindi, he would just take those steps and keep it moving. So I was always just in awe, and decided that I would never do 40 grams. So Moudou, go for it.
Well, Baba introduced me to the higher grams, probably higher dosage, maybe about 3 or 4 years after me regularly going in. In the early days, our initiation was 3, 5, 7, 9. Those were the dosage amounts. And, you know, after 9, that 9 was considered, you know, pushing it in the early days. And then, so what I began to do is partake in a annual ritual where I would go, I never went 40, but I would go anywhere between 21 and 23 grams as an annual reset. But one of the things that he told me was that there's no shame in lower amounts. And matter of fact, one of the things he shared is that most people don't even master 3 grams. You know, they'll take 3 grams. Oh, that was nice. And I'm ready for 5. But the reality of the matter is each of those realms have a vibrational imprint, and each of those realms have important things that you need to learn. And so mastery of each realm is so important because what'll happen is those skills you learn in 3 grams will help you at the higher realms, such as navigating, extricating yourself out of a thought loop, dealing with negative thought forms that may cause anxiety. All these things are skill sets, even being able to, for lack of a better word, navigate your way into the deeper realms. Because if you're good, hell, you could take 5 grams and go as deep as somebody on 10 if you know what you're doing, if you know how to access it properly and the plant receives you. So it's important that people understand that mastery, because what's happening is that they don't understand that this plant is a living entity and that you establish a relationship with this living entity. And based on what this living entity shares or doesn't share with you, gives you the ability to go deep and the amount that it shares with you. And so I always tell people, and like Kilindi always told me, this is not a contest. You know, take time to master each round. You know, and sometimes, me and Ahatu would, you know, we would have our annual thing and we'll go on 3 grams. It was not like, oh, that's too beneath us. No, it wasn't that situation. Different doses have different applications, and learning while each level or amount that you dose and how it applies is so important. And it's very important as we move forward. Even party doses are useful. Sub-perceptual doses are called microdoses. Micro doses are important. Small 1 gram doses are important. 3 or 5, all of those are important. They all have benefits that have yet to be fully understood. And that's why we all need everybody in this to share.
Sorry, I don't know if you cut out at the end, right at the end there, Moudou. I missed you.
Oh, I was just saying the importance of everybody being a psychonaut and helping to expand this compendium of information, because each realm has so much to offer and so many applications for human development that we all have to explore these realms even more.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, because again, it's, you know, I get a lot of, you know, people who are fresh to Kilindi's information, you know, they watch, you know, 1 or 2 of his talks, then they get in touch with me and others, I guess, and they're like, yeah, so have you done this? And, you know, they're really excited and want to get, you know, I want to take 40 grams and see what that's like. And I'm just here to share with you, he never encouraged me in that way, to move in that direction in that way. He was very responsible in how he supported me in that. And I'm sure it's the same with everybody, because from what I gather, he stood on his square. You know, I knew this, just like Joe, like what you said when Moody answered your question. He was like, that's what Kilindi said, because that's what he would have said to me, and he would say to everyone. As I said, he doesn't buck, dance, and skip. You know, the message is always just clear, you know. So with me, my introduction or initiation was grow these mushrooms, eat these mushrooms, and then come talk to me afterwards if you've got anything to talk about. You know, it was, you know, so it's, people think there's a cult or we're being bullied or pushed into things. It was like, it was just, I'm here for you when you need me to be here for you. And then when I would need him, his answer would normally be, you know what you need to do, go back in and face that thing that you're fearful or worried about or concerned, whether it's what I think the neighbors are gonna say or that I'm, you know, turning into something that I'm not familiar with. It's, you know, he was consistent. And that's what I want people to not just take the highlights from the titles of the talks and what you want to hear. You've heard it now from the people themselves who lived and walked through this, man. That's not the school of thought. So the high dose experience for Kilindi was what I guess he needed in his excursions for the fuel that he needed in the tank, but he wasn't encouraging everybody to do it unless you was one of those hard nuts to crack. But you would then pace yourself responsibly. So Aimee, yeah, back to you. I don't know if the Omolewa.
Okay, so we are gonna try. So I have Omolewa on WhatsApp here, and there's a speaker. So I hope try speaking now, and then we can see if you can pick up my mini rig through the mic, the laptop speaker. Yeah, this is what happens.
Hello, can you hear me?
Try.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello,
Everyone
hello.
Cool.
Oh, good. Greetings, Entheogenic family and friends. I'm Omolewa, the Entheogenic Midwife. I am a massage therapist of 16 years, as well as a doula and midwives assistant. I'm also a spiritual consultant and a psilocybin consultant as well. All the work kind of goes hand in hand. I met Baba and kind of saw him in little snippets around the Detroit community. My daughter went to Enseroma Institute, which is an African-centered school, as you heard from Moudou. So that's where I kind of saw the family, Ayana, having first conversations with her, and Moudou was my daughter's teacher and things like that. But it wasn't actually until the Women in Entheogens conference put on by Kai Wingo in Cleveland that I actually came more up close and personal with Baba and his wives at the time, and just the whole network of the mushrooms. And from there began to take classes and things. It's just been on since then. So that's kind of how I met Kilindi. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I told you guys I'm here in Jamaica, and I haven't been home in a while. So this is my first time actually processing this and seeing you all. And it's a bit of what makes this real for me. So excuse me if my emotions are kind of all over the place.
Okay, thank you for sharing, sis. Appreciate that. So at this point, we're just going to open it up for more questions now. So let's go with, because of the situation with Omolewa, let's go with any questions for Omolewa. And I'm going to go with the first one, just to open it up to discussion. Sis, you're known as the Entheogenic Midwife. Can you share with us the entheogenic and the midwifery connection, please? How did that happen, or what is that about?
Yes. First of all, that was a name given to me by Kilindi as it relates to my work as a sacred gatekeeper through the psilocybin, as well as a gatekeeper through the birth portal, including the placenta. Baba has always supported me in and around my work as a doula, and just with all the work. Kilindi and I cultivated the medicine together. So it was just pretty much a collaboration of all the work that I do and what he saw to label me as. But what I do is just holding space, medicine, without the medicine. As far as birth goes, most of it is through consulting and just answering any questions that women have. as far as the medicine right now, it's still a space where women are fearful. Some of them, even if they are taking it, they may not share the full story just because of the stigma around what's considered drugs and birth with babies. So that's just where I am as far as the entheogenic midwife, assisting those with giving birth to children, as well as giving birth to their higher self, as well as resurrecting themselves through the medicine, psilocybin specifically. So just working with Baba and sharing with him stories and asking questions and ways to be better, and, you know, just all those things through the work. I don't have a huge, lengthy, you know, history of things to share, but any questions I'm open to asking that may help me to elaborate a little more.
Yep, any questions? The chat, obviously, we are totally, this is, yeah, as Danny Talker says, this is a very innovative way of communicating.
It's still very hard for me to believe this is happening or has happened. You know, Baba kind of shifted, you know, I can't say right before my eyes because I wasn't there, but just the instant hearing of the news, I'm still processing it through a more in our ears and still teaching us. He's definitely still doing that. So even throughout this process and through this medium, I am learning how to love him still unconditionally in this space and still support and hold up his work and his legacy.
Yes, thank you.
We have a question. So Karen, one of the Seed Sisters, has asked, I'm interested if you are harvesting mushrooms wild in Jamaica and also in Detroit. So maybe you want to talk about Jamaica, like, because you've recently moved there, haven't you? And your plans.
Yes, and most of my cultivation here is more in a controlled environment. Because I'm still getting acclimated to the environment here, the weather. We've been in a drought since January. So those are the things that Bob and I would have been mastering and discussing, is how to grow mushrooms well in various environments. So as far as foraging, I'm a little bit more psilocybin specific, but not in the wild. Right now, I'm kind of staying on my level where I am exclusively with the psilocybin in a controlled environment. But I am open to learning in the future as it comes to me spiritually.
And are you running retreats? Or hope to?
No, I am not. Right now, working more with individuals and couples in my home, as well as a sacred space, beautiful river here on 50 acres. So it's more of a personal thing, retreats. You know, I promote retreats, but for me, psilocybin is such an individual work. And when you seek God, I feel that you should be alone or in the smallest environment as possible. You know what I mean, with others. But, you know, I may be open to retreats in the future, but right now I am, you know, going through this process here, along with just healing myself and getting grounded and taking care of myself first before I extend that to others.
Good job. Someone's asking about where's the best place, in case the connection goes again, contact information if people want to get hold of you.
I'm Sweet Serenity Company on Facebook. sweetserenitycompany.weebly.com is my website. Omolewa, Entheogenic Midwife on Facebook as well. And I can put my number in the chat if anybody wants to call or has any questions. I also have a consulting link online if you want to get a little bit deeper into your mushroom practice and how to prepare set and setting, and, you know, women who may be looking to conceive, pregnant, or breastfeeding, any questions or support they need around their personal psilocybin practice.
Amazing. And what's your kind of takeaway lesson before we joined in, Darren was talking about any takeaways from your time with Kilindi, or lessons learned. That was it we were talking about. Do you have kind of
lessons learned about Baba or from Baba? I guess it's to be unapologetic. You know, Baba lived his life. I was only around a short time, so I can't really vouch for Baba's complete and total legacy of the man he is and was. But just to be unapologetic in whatever it is that I do as a medicine woman, pushing the limits, not to be the guru or the grand master of this thing. Also just the sacrifice. Baba made a lot of sacrifices so that all of us could be where we are today. You know, so just grateful for his sacrifice and his vision. I'm so grateful that he saw me somewhere fit to be a part of his grand vision, you know. So through that, I'm just still learning about myself, you know, as well. But just through his sacrifice and his diligence and being persistent and pressing his way through and just standing in his power and his truth. You know, and that's also what the mushrooms teach us, as well as humility. You know, Baba was a very humble man. Even though he was like a celebrity, wherever we went, I'd have to continue my shopping because others, hey, Baba, I know you from YouTube and all of that, but he stood strong. He never was arrogant or egoic in this work. You know, so I appreciate him for that, because many men take the mushrooms and the medicine and the power that comes along with that, and they do misuse it and abuse it. Ice and his commitment and his vision with this work, because where would many of us be without it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Cool. Okay, well, we'll keep you tuned in here, but we'll open the floor up because Danny's got a question to all the speakers. So we will, Danny, if you can unmute yourself and ask. And that goes to Ayana and to Moudou as well. So if he can find that, and then I'm just going to mute myself, but we can keep you tuned in. Where's he gone? Maybe I'll ask on his behalf. So to all speakers, it's quite an esoteric question. It has to do with populating the spaces in the mushroom realms for meeting. Did Kilindi suggest this to others, and sort of talking about populating the space internally? So I don't know, jump in if anyone wants to answer. Yeah, so about populating the spaces in mushroom realms for meeting.
Yeah, I like to share out. Yeah, that was something that Kilindi would speak a lot about. Part of what he would share with me is that traditional, I guess, meeting spaces in that realm have been either abandoned or not constructed. And so what he said is that when you look at cultures and you see their, he said the basis of it is, if you look, every culture has a particular weave pattern or a particular pattern of art design. And he said that's what represents that common cultural meeting place for people. And he says in the ancients, you know, they would have these established meetup spaces, and that the youth, when they would go through initiation, this is how they would learn the mores and the traditions and the habits and the taste of their community, because it was a shared space that everybody experienced. And so he acknowledges a very real thing, and is I think it's very important work, because we know, those that go, that this is the well of inspiration. And like he says, ancient traditions, they built their civilizations based on the common meeting space they were coming from and implementing it onto the physical realm. And I think it's so important. And that's where like group communal traditions of going into these realms comes in at. And I think it creates this cultural functional unity. It creates a bond that's deeper than, you know, financial, social, whatever. And it speaks an unspoken language. And so part of what he would say is, one of the most important things is that there'll be a regular entering into the space purposefully by a group, you know, in a traditional sense. And the more that this group will go in, just like a rowing team or any other team aspect, you begin to align yourself synergistically. And so then as a circle, you begin to just operate and communicate and relate on a way that's beyond what we call normal. So he spoke a lot on that and the importance of setting up those sacred, consecrated spaces for those group events in a regular pattern, whether it's based on star alignments or any other significant aspect, because you don't have to talk. Once everybody comes out the next morning, you could just nod at each other and say, yeah, I get it, you know, and that's the most powerful thing. Yeah.
Darren, do you have anything to add, Ayana?
Ayana?
Yes, I can talk about, you know, I give retreats for women. And for the past, oh my God, 10, 12 years, I've taken a group of women for a weekend up into the woods. And oftentimes it would be on Baba Moudou's beautiful land. And we would all take 3 grams and connect that way in that space. And I found that with women, the connection came through the womb. It would be a womb connection. And there's no other way to explain that other than the energy that came from each one of us. Is like if this sister over here was carrying hurt and pain, and that her womb was no longer a home, but it was a tomb for her. Through the work that we were doing collectively, we were able to push energy, give energy, see that auric field and help heal that woman. We found that a lot of women were dealing with mother-daughter issues. I mean, even women who were, so let me give you the ideal of the type of women that came. They would be from 16 to 75. And one woman in particular who was about 75 was still carrying the pain of her relationship with her mother, who had been passed for many, many years. But it was such a painful experience. But through the psilocybin and us connecting at that point in that space, we were able to give divine love and healing to her so where she could let that go. So we connected in that place. Now, when we did do the group session with the men, you know, the women and the men did the 3 grams together. I promise you, I'm not going to do that again because I was too busy watching the men turn into animals and try to fly and get up in the trees, and it was hilarious. And so it kind of took away from my own journey because I was like, this dude actually turned into a bird in front of me. He tried to fly through the air. I don't know, it was crazy. One dude wanted to step into the fire and the other one wanted to eat his crystal. I was like, look at these men. So they were kind of funny. So I vowed that I would not take another journey as a group with men and women, you know what I'm saying? But I do encourage traveling together, specifically when you are with your mate and you have journeyed a few times. But I would encourage in a relationship for the man and the woman to at least take 7 together. We found that the dosage of the 7 grams brought about an aphrodisiac type kind of energy. So if you were connected sexually during this 7 gram dosage, you would, it's called hypnosis is the word that I use for this. Hypnosis simply means to become one flesh or becoming one flesh. And there's actually a language, again, that the psilocybin gives you to make you understand the sacredness of sex. So in that space, it's not so much about the pleasure of the orgasm, it's the sacredness of what is actually going on, becoming one flesh. So there are many ways to tap into that space. And I found that that was one of them. We do have the energy of the mushrooms in that 7 gram realm that permits some people to have what we call mushroom orgasms. those orgasms can last for a couple of hours. I'm about to smile real big right now and tell on myself. So, but it's the, whoo child. Okay, so I think I'm gonna take me 7 tonight. I'm messing with y'all. So yes, connecting and synergistically speaking is a very powerful journey for those to take together. And then the expression of when you come out of these journeys, you know, at one of the retreats, I had the women actually paint on canvas what they saw in their journey. And some of those paintings were extremely profound. And then connecting the dots, you know, her journey was like this. So we found that the womb energy was very, very powerful. And I encourage the sisters who are circling now, because we are circling in numbers that we haven't before, because it's a very ancient thing to do, is for women to circle and heal together. Well, that's happening again. And through the use of psilocybin, which is where I come in at, in a lot of these circles, go ahead on and be brave and loosen the grip that the world has on you, and explore your own consciousness. And you'll find that all of this stuff is deep, but it's really not that deep. You can handle it. You got this, you know?
I just want to chime in real quick, and that was profound, Mama. One of the things too that the gist of the question too is, in that other realm, the Aboriginals, when they talking about walking dream state, or walking in a dream state, or through the dream realm, it's just like any other journey. It's like if you're going through the desert, it'd be nice if you had a rest stop with some water and things like that. And so as people who facilitate these spaces and people that go in regularly, one of the things we try to establish in those spaces, and everybody should, is a sort of celestial world map, for lack of a better word, that helps people navigate those spaces. I know it's abstract, but for those that go into that realm, you know the importance of knowing how to navigate. And just like climbing a mountain, somebody sets those pins into the side of the mountain so you could tie your harness to it. That's part of the importance of setting up those spaces in that dream state realm as well. It gives people a rest spot, an oasis, a marker to help them navigate. It's like a well-worn path that people go through. It helps people kind of feel like they know their way home. It's the proverbial breadcrumbs.
I think you may have just answered that, but Inez has asked Ayana, but you may have kind of touched upon it there, Moudou. She says, Baba Kilindi got stuck in a puzzle. Ayana mentioned that during one trip, Baba Kilindi got stuck in a puzzle. My question, how do we get out from puzzles, loops, darker places when tripping, given that no one can come to meet us in that realm to pull us out? So if there's no one there, how do you get yourself out?
Just, well, you know, Moudou touched on that a little earlier. He did say, I mean, you know, the sun will rise, you will come up out of this. You know, time does stop. I mean, you can take, say, the mushrooms at, 12 a.m. and you've been in there for hours and hours and hours. But if you happen to look at your clock, it says 1:30 and you've only been in there for an hour and a half. Just know that, because I remember being in several trips, like, when is the sun gonna shine? I need to come up out of this, and like Baba Kilindi would say, once you've taken it, oh well, you better hold on to the floor. So yeah, just knowing yourself. And I hear people say they call it the medicine. Well, for those that are not sick and they just want a journey and they want to explore their own consciousness, to be more excited about the journey and to let go of the trepidation, and you'll find that that journey will move a lot better for you. But if you do have the issues of anxiety, which you guys, I will tell you that anxiety is an entity, and it slithers about you. It's almost, if you can reach out and grab the anxiety by its neck and strangle it, that's the power that the mushrooms will give you. And I'm going to probably go off course here, and I do apologize, but I want to add with that the micro dosing that actually helps inside of this place to curb that awful entity, because right now on this planet, that entity is very, very strong, and whatever is being fed from that entity, it's all on purpose. So if we try microdosing just to curb that, you know, so that you can look around and not see the fear that's trying to take over, because that has been a big weapon against us, is fear, and that's how they control, and that's the power. But once you get into that space and you realize that, you know, darkness has no respect for fear, you step outside of that box and you start to grow in another way. So the sun will shine again. You'll step up out of that and you'll have something to talk about.
And in a very practical way too, and it sounds very basic, but concepts like posture, the direction you're facing, breathing, all of these things impact your ability to either get in or out of these situations. And so that's why, you know, for those that practice, you know, the deep work is understanding the sacred breaths that you have to take. You know, there are times when you feel like you have transitioned into the non-living realm, because you'll notice that your breathing is almost imperceptible. You know, but understanding what the serpent breath is and how it's used, understanding these ancient techniques, what the fire breath is when you reach that realm, how to utilize it, what is it for, understanding science of tone and vibration. These are, you know, the ancient sciences of Africa, India, Europe, Asia, you know, whether it's the Triadoshas of Ayurveda or the Bhagavad Gita. Understanding these ancient traditions helps us understand how to move through these traditions. Tibetan Book of the Dead, the ancient mandalas, sand sculptures, all of these were roadmaps and texts that talked about encountering these beings, how to deal with them, whether through breath, posture, vibrational tone, direction. That's basically your manual how to fly that airplane.
And I'll just throw in the last.
Sorry, Omolewa wanted to add something, but maybe when we get her connected, she unmutes her mic, then you can add. If you mute your laptop, Omolewa, because we can get feedback.
I thought I did.
Aimee.
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to add about one's own spiritual and self-care practices that they're already using. You know, I did skydiving a couple years ago, so I already put myself in situations that allow me to say fuck fear. You know, people who already are anxious, I like that Ayana said that it's an entity. We already have to be used to combating these different things that we experience from day to day. And what I find is that with psilocybin, we're walking around trying to avoid all these things from day to day, whether it's grief or sadness or crying or vomiting or any of those. Hello?
Yeah, you're here. Carry on.
Yeah, so just saying, we're walking around trying to avoid all these sensations and feelings, and that's what the medicine is there to help us do. You know, so when you get these anxious feelings or feelings of depression or whatever it is, whatever entities that are coming to attack you, you know, that's what the initiation through psilocybin is all about. We're so fearful and don't want to go through anything. We want life to be this easy breeze, and no, the psilocybin is about the initiation. It is about facing your fears. It is about facing your traumas and things like that for each of us. So I think already leaning into your personal self-care and spiritual practices will assist you greatly with your personal mushroom journey.
Thank you. And Darren, sorry, I think I interrupted you, so.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say a piece of advice that Kilindi always gave me when asking questions initially, when I was more naive to this path, it was like, why don't you take it to the mushrooms, you know? And, you know, on your journey and on your excursions, those questions that you will bring or ask another human being, you can take to the most non-discriminative teacher, the source, the divine, God, call it what you want, and take that into those spaces, take your challenges with you and ask for answers, you know? So it's a combination of those things. And I think one thing Kilindi would always say publicly and personally is it's the journey of the alone into the alone. And, you know, you're going to go and hit those spaces, those challenging spaces. And when I would come back and say, shit, that was scary, and, you know, whatnot, it's like, well, you know what you got to do? You've got to take more and keep it moving. You know, you're going to be scared, but you keep moving, you know, and that's no different from someone who might be a performer who's got to go on stage and sing and dance, and they get those nerves and anxious feelings, but you've got to keep moving forward. So that's, you know, for me, it doesn't necessarily get easier, like, oh, I'm now experienced and it's just easy to do this. It's just that you get better at handling those situations. But they don't disappear, basically.
Very good point. It's not a remedy to it. It's just a way of managing and pushing forward. Good point, Darren.
Thank you for that. We've got some more questions from the floor. We've got Lee. Hi, Lee. Amazing tattoo artist, just on the side. He said, to all the speakers, do you listen to music while tripping? What kind of music? And name a couple of artists, or do you prefer silence? It's a question quite often asked by a lot of people, music and tripping. I don't know who would like to answer that, but
I prefer silence. Specifically, I did go in one time with music and I found it extremely distracting to me, bothersome, you know, so silence, complete darkness, even the sound, even the light that comes from the television is a bother for me. So I need the complete darkness and silence myself.
Moudou, what about you?
Depends. Sometimes I'm trying to go into like far deeper realms and go into the unknown, and that's when usually I prefer the triple darkness and silence. But sometimes I go in for a particular work or focus, and a lot of times I tune to the sitar or the didgeridoo, something that's like, you know, varies in vibrational tone, and it gives me the ability to focus on what I'm working on, you know, and it helps me. But generally it's triple darkness, no sound, unless, you know, there's some particular work and I need to focus on a particular aspect of self, and the music helps me stay attuned to that. Another one, yeah.
Oh, sorry, carry on. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I was going to say sitar, didgeridoo, the kora, Tibetan crystal bowls, any of those tonal sounds that can keep you focused. I guess the traditional meditative music that keeps you focused.
So no One Direction then. Just joking. Omolewa would like to add, I think you're muted. You have to unmute yourself on WhatsApp. Cool. And then she would like to add.
Yes, I think if you're going to listen to music, maybe the music that you're already using, again, in your personal self-care practices and spiritual practices. I like the Native American flute. I like the Egyptian music. I like silence, you know, so kind of doing what works best for you. I've also gained a greater appreciation through the violin. Damien Escobar is my favorite violinist. And I've gained a greater appreciation for the cello. I found that both of those instruments help to open up my heart chakra if I'm flying throughout the journey. So the more you cultivate your medicine and have the quantities too, and just the spiritual wherewithal to travel as often as need and try different things and see what works best for you. Cello may work well for me. The drums may work better for you. So again, developing your own practice and see what you're spiritually being led to in certain instruments and things that can help complement your journey and where it is you're going with your intention.
Darren, do you have anything to add from your practices?
Yeah, I do. I'm basically just echoing what everyone else has said, and I just think I say a saying that I say all the time in general. You got to get in where you fit in. There is no, in my experience, there's no way to do this. There's not no ritual, there's no rites that have been laid down for us to follow. We're all creating or co-creating our journey. So like Ayana says, she's in a space where she prefers silence in the dark, and that's what she does, and that's what works for the sister. And like Moudou says, that's what works for him. But at times I like to use music, and what we're gathering is you've got to create your own, your own model. There is no way. So for me, I started off like the others, from that school of thought of just being here alone by yourself in the dark. And I had those journeys, and at times the music, like Ayana said, was a disturbance, a distraction, and it's not useful for the work that I want to do. But many sun cycles later, I really utilize music now in my journey, and for using it as the technology it is, because I understand music to be a technology too, and you can use it as a tone, as a frequency to anchor you, or use as a channel or an antenna to the work that you need to do. I'll just give examples, being that, like Omolewa said, I think you listen to music that you connect with, you are connected to, that might help people like Joe, with any anxieties about what you might do in creating your setting, you can play some of the relaxing music. And if you're not somebody who listens to that ambient type music, you might be a rock person. And I would encourage you to listen to your rock music to get you in that, in that calm state, or whatever state you need to be in, kind of thing. And it's just a matter of utilizing. Basically I'm saying to say it's not what anybody else listens to. It's like what you listen to is what's important. And perfect example being just a practical thing. I've been listening, or was utilizing music that I grew up listening to in my childhood, and was able to utilize that music to reconnect with ancestors, or spaces where ancestors were, where that music used to be played. And I can use that music as an anchor to pull me into that part of myself or that space. So again, it's just, you'll learn or should develop the technologies that allow you to get to the places and spaces you need to. And you can do that through music as well, I feel. And you got to get on with the funk, man. Everybody hears about everybody talks about psychedelic music. Aimee, you can bear witness. We got all these conferences, all these festivals, all these and they talk about psychedelic music. It's very biased. It's one-dimensional. So I'd encourage you all to listen to some George Clinton, Bootsy Collins, and the funk gods who brought the funk, cosmic, psychedelic music from those realms to Earth for us. And I know there's Lloyd in the building. So
I have to concur. I know what the P-funk is now, and it's psilocybin.
Yeah, you got it, man. That's psychedelic funk. So yeah, explore. That's all I'm saying. So I'll be carried away.
Yeah, definitely need to switch.
I'd like to add something here. I found that on one of my excursions in complete silence, the mushrooms was able to give me a tone, which was the B-flat tone. It told me in the case of war that I could use the tone B-flat and be victorious in my fight there. So having the dreaded COVID disease here, I found myself laying in my bed, feverish, but humming the tone, the B-flat sound. And nothing consciously said, hum the B-flat because you're at war. No, that wasn't it at all. But I knew from a past experience that it gave me that information just for that time in my life. And by humming that B-flat, I do believe that it helped get me up out of that bed. So the silence for me was very necessary. I will try again with music. I think I like the way that sounds. And also to those out there, and just moving away from that, I've never tripped in the daytime. And I find that that has got to be an experience that I like to have as well, as a daytime trip, so that you can actually hear what's going on outside for real. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you.
It's really interesting to hear about the time of day as well. I think that goes nicely on to Catherine's asked the question about well, how effectively to bring entheogens to communities, shared circles, anything like that, and also how important is the role of food play in the experience?
I'm sorry, Aimee, I didn't hear the last part of the question. I think you said something about food.
Yeah, how important does the role of food play in the experience? So I guess maybe that's leading up to the experience, how like the dieta and ayahuasca circles, or yeah. That's Catherine's. If Catherine wants to unmute herself, go ahead and you can elaborate more on that question, Catherine Kidd.
Wholeness, yes, that was my question. Is I've heard people, from my experience, I always fast leading up to. However, I've heard people, you know, putting the substance in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or, you know, they'll have like a full meal right before an experience. My most recent experience, I was on a fast, and I had a really profound experience. So I just wanted to know if there's any insight into how diet can affect, if anything, can diet affect the experience?
We were taught back in the day, Baba Kilindi suggested that you fast for the entire day. Of course, you stay hydrated, but you fast and then you go in at 12 midnight. That was the old way of doing it. We found that a lot of people just couldn't pull off the fast, so we would tell them that if you cannot fast, you know, stop eating maybe 6-7 hours prior to you ingesting the fruits. A lot of people would throw up, they would vomit. And if they had too much on their stomach, you know, that's always got to be a very unpleasant experience, but it's real and it does happen. You know, it's the purging aspect of it. Now, you know, mushrooms are unlike ayahuasca in terms of purging, because I do believe that if you empty your gut, you won't throw up like that, you know. So fasting, I would recommend to most people, you know, because be warriors. I mean, come on, you can be hungry for almost 24 hours. You can do that. That's how we started. You got to be warriors inside of this thing. People start getting a little lazy. Well, I'm hungry and I want to eat and maybe I can eat a salad. No, just go in and do the work. You find that it's a lot clearer, cleaner, and when you're in there, you're not hungry at all because you're full off of mushrooms. So yeah, no doubt.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, you can jump in because Omolewa is here. Just mute your laptop again, and then she's here. Yeah.
Yep, I got it. Yeah, fasting does have its role. I've also personally found that it's almost kind of like, and not comparing alcohol with the psilocybin at all, but sometimes people can't drink on an empty stomach. It makes them ill. You know, gatekeeping for people, I found that they can't really focus on the journey or get what they get because there's something going on with the belly. You know, so I may recommend light fruit or salad or herbal tea, but definitely the discipline is what it takes. Like, there's certain things sometimes we have to push back our plates. Now, when Baba, well, I'll say this first. One time I took a journey and I had a slice of pizza. Early in the beginning, I had a slice of pizza and I think I had a Dutch Girl donut, if people around Detroit know about Dutch Girl. So I had those, and later on when I took that journey, actually I was with Baba, I got so sick. But it was through the vomiting and the purging that my spirit spoke to me and said, how do you expect me to come through fully when you have this trash inside of you? You know, so like I say, don't judge it, get your own personal practice, and you'll see how you feel when you eat, when you don't, when you eat peanut butter with the medicine, when you eat pizza, and see what works best for you. It's like mushrooms are becoming such a technical thing. Like everybody wants to figure it out. They want all their questions answered when it's not like that. You know, you just got to kind of get in there and see what happens for you. Now, my last journey was the night that Baba made his transition, you know. Of course, I didn't expect Baba to transition, so I had been eating foods and things, you know, and I found that with that journey, I was a lot more calm, I was a lot more at peace, and it was a lot more clear. It may be because I was working with Baba specifically, but it was like none of those things mattered at that moment. Go in and get everything that I needed with food still in my belly. You know, it's like birth. Some women do good with music, some women don't. Some do great with massage therapy, some don't. You may start off wanting music, and then after a few hours you want complete silence. So it's kind of like my word to everybody is do your own work, create your own practice, and see what works well for you. Even with couples, people like, should I travel with a partner? Of course you should, but still you need to travel as an individual, the individual that you are. So I'm all about promoting your own practice and see what works best for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just real quick, I'll share out. Yeah, I'm in concurrence with everything everyone said. One of the things I'm personally been investigating and researching over these last 5 years is when you study traditional societies, they do have a pre-flight diet, those foods which inform the gut. We realize that the brain actually has more neurons than, the stomach has more neurons than the brain. And when you ingest these, the different, depending on the colony and the health of that bacteria, it often dictates how the psilocybin is received. And so I've been looking as of late into traditional societies like Oscaweros. They'll have you eat a certain food, or even in Gabon with the Iboka, they'll eat a certain food before a flight because I guess it will inform the gut, the second brain. But for me personally, I like to fast. I saw someone post a question about the lemon juice. In fact, it does increase the speed of the effects because it strips the psilocybin and it converts it to simple psilocin, which is easier ingested. But the thing is, it shortens the length of the trip. But yeah, lemon juice helps. And so I just want to share out, like everyone else said, this is why we need more serious people to investigate these, because these are questions to be answered. Is there ideal food to eat to guarantee no nausea, or to guarantee a deeper, profound experience, or to limit the amount of anxiety one will have? These are still mysteries.
Yeah, I think that's nice. So we've gone from food, time of day, music, and Alexander has asked, what do you think about creating art/painting along the journey?
Like I mentioned earlier in the talk, I think it's awesome because, it's such a visual journey that you take. If you can transfer that energy into your hand and actually paint, and you've seen some of the paintings at the Break-In convention that are on the walls there, just awesome art. I was at Ozora last year with Kilindi, and the artwork has to be from people who have been taking the journey on a regular basis, to actually come up with that type of artwork. So I encourage that. To express yourself that way. Some people, try writing about it. Some people actually try to physically record themselves or tape themselves while they're in the journey. Back in the day, I don't know what was happening. Maybe our stuff didn't work right, but when I tried to record, certain parts of my journey would be totally blank, and then other parts would come through. It's as if the mushroom said, no, you cannot hear this part. I don't want anybody else to hear this part that you would probably share. So music and creating music and enhancing anything that you do through psilocybin just really works. Like the massage therapist can see the meridian lines, and the musician can actually see the notes come from the universe. The martial artist can actually see the moves and what they're all about. It's just a enhancement, and to pass it on canvas or make music from it, just awesome. It's just a beautiful, profound thing.
Moudou, do you have anything to add?
I would say that's the real work. Essentially, if we're trying to create a world, one of Kilindi's teachings, he said that there's no social, spiritual, human revolution without a cultural revolution first. Because essentially what's happening is that art is an expression of abstract concepts and ideas that cannot be put into words. And so this is the birthing of a new reality. And this is, like Ahati would often teach, ancient societies were built going into these novel states of consciousness, bringing back new ideas and sharing them with the people, which gave people an expanded view of what could be potential. So I think that's very important, whether it's artwork, a new invention, a lottery number, anything you can bring back from that realm that's novel, that's new, that's exciting. That's the work. And I think that's what helps transform humanity and the world that we have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And here you go.
I feel if you're going to paint, again, there is no right or wrong way, but I say let it come to you naturally. But sometimes to go in and say, oh, I'm going to paint and I'm going to create art, and sometimes people are doing it for money or whatever it is they're trying to do. Sometimes you need to just sit your ass down and allow the medicine to do what it needs to do. You're trying to get up, you got to go find paints and do certain things. It's like, now you done spilled it, or you done knocked something, or you just made some brain and your thoughts and your ego want to paint a pretty picture. You know, I can even say, like today, I'm going in the ceremony with my bindi, and you want to look beautiful and you want these certain outcomes. So when you get through, you know, it's not a pretty picture. It's not a pretty thing. So making sure that you are getting the downloads and the messages and the upgrades and the cleansing that you need from the medicine without always trying to do what it is that you think you should be doing during that time. So like I said, just finding the balance.
Thank you.
Okay, can I jump in there, Aimee, as well? Yeah, really appreciate the feedback as well, and I'm just piggybacking off that, because what I think my experience and people I work with, you know, the creative element, like Omolewa said, to me, is basically post the experiences where you can take, you know, real full advantage of it. And I also think culturally, indigenously, that's the way we integrate the experience. So I know in a lot of schools of thought today with the therapeutic centers, there's all this integration and the counseling, and as Kilindi would say, you know, the patting on the back and rubbing on the shoulder and everything's going to be all right. But back home, the way we integrate, I've clocked is through dancing. We've got ritualistic dances and creative acts that allow us to funnel the experience into the, you know, our earthly experiences. So that's why we have Kemet. That's why we have Angkor Wat. That's why we have these amazing architectural, creatively designed places, as well as the people being creative, because it came out of these experiences. But I think the experience itself of music, dancing, is to invoke the energy and then to integrate it. But during the middle, you know, the peak, it was like, go lay down and eat the mushrooms and have the experience. It wasn't about necessarily painting during the experience. But again, I know people who microdose, take small doses and paint and come up with amazing pictures. So I tell everybody, again, just get in where you fit in, for real. And then before we go to the next question, Aimee, I've had a question through the back door.
Yeah.
Well, not yet. And that's because it came up, and I don't know if the answer was, if they put it in the main box, but it wasn't being answered, and it was in relation. So I'm going to ask both Ayana and Omolewa to just touch on this again, and it relates to children taking psychedelics, but specifically children who are already born, you know, that are 5, you know, how young you start from, or what is the protocol for young children. That was asked by Lloyd.
As far as the protocol is concerned, that's very personal. I myself, I would say 18 for me, you know, but we have people in the community who have given their children psilocybin at a very early age. I mean, if you all are familiar with KT, the Arch Degree, who has spoken in London several times, he had been taking psilocybin since he was 3 years old, you know, and look at how expansive his mind is today. But I would say to people, me personally, if I were to advise that, people drag so much junk with them throughout their entire lives that they just don't have to drag with them. And that if they start early enough, and I again would go with 18 simply because of the legal aspect of it, so that they don't have to drag the junk, the bullshit that they carry throughout their lives, the what ifs, the feeling less than and not good enough, and you know, when you can walk in your own power because you really do understand who you are a lot better than you would have, that you wouldn't if you hadn't taken this beautiful plant medicine. So yeah, start your kids early, you know, and let it be a personal decision, and let there be an understanding and an educating process for the entire family. And then, you know, being very thorough with the child, because you're actually giving that child a gift. Because again, I work with a lot of women, and 1 in 5 women are on anti-anxiety drugs because we live in an abnormal civilized society. They give us abnormal drugs to cope. And we're just moving along like the zombies, you know, putting a Band-Aid on what the issues are. Sometimes life can be very, very difficult. Sometimes it's easier to die than it is to live on this planet, you know? So if we could just shift that energy at a very young age, so they don't have to deal with the garbage that people bring with them, I would suggest it highly to do so.
Thank you, Ayana. And Omolewa is going to answer. Are you ready?
Yes. Well, I recommend first having, again, your own spiritual practice and your own relationship with psilocybin. That way you already know it's like a perfect and divine medicine. You know, it is the food of the gods. It is the God molecule, you know, that we're introducing to children. We never question when the doctor is giving the flu vaccine during pregnancy, Zoloft, these different medications that have proven to show deformities in children and adverse effects. We're not questioning the heroin and the opiates that are being introduced to babies that are in utero. We don't think twice about the hepatitis vaccine that's given within 24 to 48 hours. Circumcision, all these birth practices that we've been doing that have been destroying us and altering the consciousness of our children. So when I look at psilocybin, kind of like how the placenta is specific for that particular mom and for her baby. Through this work, I've also found that the souls before entering this planet are requiring the families to level up and clear out the generational curses and to come into some type of alignment or reality with their trauma and their life and what type of children they're looking to create. Now, we as women, having our mysteries and things, there were a lot of things that I'm sure we've done before men were introduced into the scenario. So again, we as women getting back to our divine best, you know, for our families, for our children, and for our bloodline. So building this relationship with the work should definitely open the door for you to do what you already know is best for your children. It's kind of like if you're already asking this question and inquiring, then spirit is already guiding you to do this. You know, and again, it's going to be specific for that child and what its individual needs are, from autism to ADHD. You know, we're giving the children everything else between the tablets, the cell phones, the sugar, the red dye number 3, 4, 9, and 12. You know, so why do we question this divine medicine, especially if we already have a relationship with it? You know, you're not going to give your child anything you wouldn't give to yourself, you know? So understanding birth and understanding the human body first and foremost, we know everything except for how our bodies work. That's what I tell people when they ask what I do. I work with the most dynamic machine on this planet, and that is the human body, which we underestimate, which we undervalue. You know, so we almost have to introduce this medicine to our children. Look at the communities, look at the people, look at how these babies are growing up. We have to step in as women and create a new way through entheogens, be it cannabis, the psilocybin, peyote, just whatever you're being best. It's not always meant to be broadcast, you know, as we do for education purposes, but we have to dig in deep. This is an inside job. Again, when you're seeking God and you're introducing these things to your family, it may not make sense to anyone else. We have to start learning to do what we know, or we're spiritually inclined to do what's best for us and our children and our blood.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Thank you for that.
And I'll just jump in there as well and just say, and I would like Moudou to touch on it as well, because what we've identified is that around the world, outside of being in Europe primarily, indigenous cultures who work with these plants introduce these plants to children. They don't wait, like we were saying earlier on, you know, till they're in their 30s, 40s, having midlife crises with their backs up against the wall, looking for an alternative answer. This is a way of life. This is the way it is. And we've been disconnected from that way. So it sounds really far-fetched to suggest you should give these things to children. I know because of the legality and stuff, but all you really need to do is look at the cultures who do give these things to their children and see what those cultures are about, see examples, and then compare that with examples of our communities where we have a lack of these provisions and a lack of these rites, rituals and ceremonies that supports young boys or young girls becoming young men and women. And I know Moudou has some information or knowledge just around the rites or rituals that promote young boys into manhood, that journey that starts very young. And it's, as I said, it's not when you're 18, 20 or in your 30s, it's very young in some cases. I know in the South America, they start at the ages of 8 and 9 years old. Children are walking around with cactus in their bags and stuff like that. And they're the ones who are supporting the European visitors primarily, who are taking it all over the place, not knowing where they are. And you've got these little kids who are more qualified than the people who think they're the good gurus and the shamans and stuff that are coming on these retreats. But yeah, Moudou, if you could touch on it as well.
Yeah. I mean, you said it so well. I think the question is, what culture doesn't introduce their youth at an early age? The global majority population is pretty common, but it's not something that's put out there. So like last year or a couple of years ago, we had that experience of going to Oaxaca, Mexico, to partake, in the sacred thunder mushroom and, visit Maria Sabina's hunts. And this town is, they're all about the sacred mushrooms. And so you'll find tourists from all over the world who want to have the experience, and you'll find people literally first time staggering down the street, and you'll see kids grabbing them by the hand this way, and they know exactly what's going on. They know it because they've been there themselves. And so even, when we talk about the Iboka, amongst the Gabon people, they do that early in life. And so what that does, that severs their potential for addiction, depression, and negative thought loops. And so a lot of cultures use that as an inoculation. Of course, they're not taking super high doses, but they use it as a way to keep that string between the divine, which eventually gets severed as we age, and and those rites are super important because, as we get older, we leave the supernatural and we start to really grasp into the physical. And those are like cultural reminders through life, not to get too caught up in the physical illusion. And so it's almost a psychological inoculation. That's how I call it. But as a male, I always respect the role of mamas in making that call, because y'all are, of course, in tune with life itself. But that's just my perspective, yeah. And I do rituals with young men and constantly push them to the point where they are ready to experience the divine. And the first thing is just constant reminder that, listen, this material is temporal as in temporary, and that you have an existence before your temporal self.
Thank you. And I'm just going to add one more.
Yes, we as a society often keep doing the same things and expecting different results. For me, I use psilocybin as a tool of self-empowerment and accountability. So with introducing it, well, even before you introduce it to your children, are we activating through the medicine and creating the lives that we want for ourselves and for our future generations? So do you give your child a medicine as a coping mechanism for the schools that they attend that they really shouldn't be attending, to live in communities that have a low vibration and have to live in a home that isn't of a high vibration of healing and love and the proper things that children need to survive? I brought one of my children here to the island. So even though she has not experienced the medicine yet, as of today, I'm creating a better world for her inside of that. So when I do introduce her to the medicine, it becomes more of a compliment, or maybe it won't be a medicine for her. It'll be, again, that tool of self-empowerment and accountability. So what are we pairing with the medicine? Again, those self-care practices, spiritual practices, and moving out of our own ways and creating new brain patterns and way of living. So when thinking about introducing the medicine to your children, think about their overall quality of life and where they're going, or, just the special children that they are. Again, it's unique. One child may need it, one, at a younger age, one may be at an older age. So again, look at the whole totality of this thing, not just the medicine, but our overall quality of life.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with us with all the tech issues and having to do it that way. Darren, was there anything more you wanted to add? Because we've got quite a few questions coming in.
That was it. Go. You can answer. Yeah, more questions.
Cool. Yeah, Danny asked a little while ago about Psilohuasca, so incorporating psilocybin and ayahuasca. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that. Moody's laughing, I can see. So maybe you wanna talk. Go on.
No, I've heard about it. I wouldn't dare say I know about it, but it's an interesting concept. A lot of people sometimes misconstrue, and there are like chemical differences, but essentially the goal is like the synthesis of DMT, and it exists in several plants. You know, the chemical structure of mushrooms is very similar to DMT, and just like when you use ayahuasca and cacruna, the attempt is to create an alchemical to access that DMT. So I'll be interested in that effects and the reasoning behind it, because I know that the ayahuasca vine has a spiritual signature that attaches to the DMT, and then with the psilocybin, yeah, I'd be interested in that. I haven't heard of it, but I'll be honest and say I don't know much about it.
It's not something I know anything about really. Darren, Ayana?
Yes, yeah, it's nothing I'm familiar with personally. Yeah, so I can't speak on it.
Me either. I don't know anything about it.
I guess that's something for exploration, but I don't know.
Is that from Danny? Was that from Danny?
Danny, yeah.
That's for Danny to explore and give us some data.
Yeah, exactly.
Will do.
There we go. This would come in there.
Nice one, Danny. We can't hear you, Aimee.
Sorry, I've just muted myself. This testing today, the tech. So thank you all. Do you find that experiences with different strains of mushrooms have different kinds of qualities? If so, do you have favorite strains?
I'm going to jump in real quick on this one. I've only taken the Tamarian Blue, so I really can't answer that. And the Tamarian Blue is the strain that Kilindi cultivated, created. So I suppose in order to further my journey and of exploration, I could maybe perhaps take someone else's mushrooms or the different strains that they've grown. I am interested, but as of yet, no, I have not.
I've noticed there's in different strains, they have a different, I guess, imprint, which is based on a lot of times, I guess the culture and society they were brought up in. I know it sounds odd, but I've taken different strains and getting a very impressive, you know, Olteca, Azteca, ancient Southwestern America's vibe and instruction. And then there's others I've taken that give me a different era, time, cultural imprint. So for most people, they do notice that there's a difference between them depending where they come from, and they inform you as to where they're coming from and the region and the culture that they come from. That's my experience. I'd be interested in other people to share on that, but I do believe that there's a difference in your experience due to different strains.
Darren, do you have a preference or the same?
So I would like to think, coming from a food growing background as well, I understand that, you know, soil is very important and stuff that comes from the soil, it's all connected, there's information there, unique information. So I like to teach that, but in my own personal experiences, I cannot determine any distinctive differences between the different strains that I've taken. What happens is I arrive and they're like, oh, you're back again. And it just seems to be the same, whether it's Cambodian, Mexican, or, you know, whatever it's taken me here. And what I would say, though, I had a conversation, so I will say that that's in relation to the cubensis. That's cubensis. When you're moving into, let's talk about, you know, cyanensis, traditionally wavy caps and liberty caps, and I say there's differences there in some regards to the wild ones compared to the ones that are cultivated, as well as potency. So therefore, when you take the same amounts of the different mushrooms, they definitely have a different experience or signature to them because of the psilocybin content. So what I've gathered through my experiences, like just basically the more psilocybin you get in you, is just the mission. Regardless of what strain it is, just get the psilocybin inside of you.
Thank you. Okay, Omolewa was going to add to that.
Hey, I just want to say that I'm Team Tamarian Blue. The wonderful, great, and powerful Aimee Kilindi introduced me to the Tamarian Blue. So that's where my life and has helped me in so many ways. So I kind of like to stick with what I know works best for me. Even with cultivating various strains, the people that I work with always tend to go back to the Tamarian Blue for the visuals, for what seems to be the Egyptian signature that comes along with it, and just the clarity and the cleansing and the purification that comes along with it. So again, I kind of stick with what I know works best for me.
Cool, thank you. All really useful information. Ayana, there's a question for you from Inez, and she's asking about what do you think Baba Kilindi's overall mission was? For example, was his mission bringing back wisdom and healing when he was in the other realms? If you could speak to that.
Well, you know, that's primarily what this conference is going to be about, is bringing the organic technology to the urban environments. And so that every household, well, just about every household will have the knowledge and education, and to be more than what you are, you know, go further, always go further. He pushed the envelope and he stressed that, you know, I mean, this human form that we're in is very limiting. And so, you know, I've said that, you know, I've had to share him with the world. And so now I share him with the multiverse, but his consciousness is limited now, unlimited now. You know, he is, he's everywhere, and still teaching and whispering in our ears. So, yeah, just getting it out, you know, so we get it out through these conferences, we get it out through the classes that he taught on how to grow. He really wanted people to know how to grow their own mushrooms, to become independent, because I'm telling you, there is a signature that happens within your home when you are harvesting the mushrooms. It's a vibration, it's a electricity type kind of thing that moves throughout the walls in your home when you're actually growing the mushrooms in a large amount inside of your home. It's almost like a cover of protection over you, you know? And so that's how you relate. So when you have your own, and it has your own signature, and you relate from that place, your journey seems to be a whole lot more profound. So hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah. And can I jump in there? I'm just going to jump in because as a cultivator, I just want to back up what Ayana's saying, because ultimately that's what I teach on the cultivation workshops. So to answer the question initially, is there any differences I found? Yes, in the ones that I grow. So just in relation to what you can program into the mushrooms in your space during that period of time when you're building up a relationship with them before you partake in it, you don't find that anywhere else. Only you can do that. So whether I'm getting, you know, so I noticed the difference in the ones that I grow compared to the ones that I take from people who I may know who have grown them in places where it's legal, or then you get the random ones where you're just getting stuff and you don't know where it's from. So with that said, I sometimes have picked up energy of people who have grown the mushrooms. You know, so if Moudou's grown his mushrooms and he says he did, it's like I'm gonna like throughout the night I start feeling Moudou a lot. Not that I haven't, we have done that, but just be an example that I've had those types of experiences. So that's something unique I've experienced with mushrooms.
If anyone wants to jump in, Moudou, did you want to say something? Or?
I mean, just to elaborate on Darren's point, the important thing that I think Ahati wants us to break up what he called the corrupt priesthood, in the sense that for too many years, the human access to the divine has been metered by great gatekeepers, and that for those people who are willing to grow up, show up, and step up to become those healers, those priests, those spiritual, I guess, supporters of your community, your family, so that we can have a direct relationship with the divine and not something that's brokered through others' interpretation.
Cool. And just to Lewa, and she's ready. Are you there? Oh, here we go.
Yes, I'm here. I guess if there was any a part of Baba's mission, like, do legends really have missions when they come here other than just to be legendary and beautiful, powerful, wonderful people, you know? But one of many things Baba and I did together was travel and also teach travel and teach the cultivation of the medicine. You know, we can't possibly supply the whole world. So it's important for you, yes, to cultivate your own medicine and be on your own personal mission to heal self and those who are connected around you, your community, your environment, the earth around you.
So, I mean, we've been going for about 2.5 hours now. Maybe we could sort of go around the speakers and get some closing statements about, lessons learned, what it holds for the future, especially with the conference next weekend. I don't know who wants to go first. Perhaps Ayana, could you started?
So next Sunday, 7 days from now, I will publicly be saying goodbye to my husband through celebration. And I'm going to try not to cry right now. Through celebration, we will speak his name. All are invited. The conference was built around the celebration because I wanted people to not have a choice if they were going to come. I didn't want them to say, well, I came to the conference, so I can't make the celebration of his life, and vice versa. So the conference is the 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then on the 9th, we will speak his name and venerate him as the powerful ancestor that he is now. I haven't said goodbye because he is here, and he lets it be known by knocking a few things over and bringing me down in that basement when I need to pay attention to what he's trying to get to me. But to say it publicly and allow the community to grieve with us, because for so long we've needed hugs and we needed, just the energy of our people to grieve with us and hold us up. That's going to be a difficult day for a lot of us. Those that can't make it, just know that we will know that you're holding space with us. Those that cannot make the conference due to this, just like you guys in United Kingdom, we were so looking forward to communing with you all to come to this conference because Baba was looking forward to this 3rd conference being the biggest and the best so far. And that has been the work that we have all been putting in to make it the biggest and best for him. The conference, very important work. A lot of folks are going to be there. A lot of folks are showing up, a lot of speakers. The diversity is amazing. We're going to continue this work. We hopefully, with Moudou's permission, in 2022, we will have this conference on his beautiful sacred land there in the form of the Ozora Festival. Bigger and better and brighter and more, and always speaking Baba Kilindi's name.
Thank you. It's really important, and it's amazing that you're doing this event next weekend in light of everything that's happening as well. So, Omolewa, are you ready, or should we go to Moudou? Sure. Like, Moudou, would you like to add your final words, and then we'll go to
blessed to be able to have the teachings and the, like I say, friendship of Hati Kilindi. The one thing, I think I'll be referring to some of his witticisms or some of his proverbs for the rest of my life, but he would always say, don't mistake the airplane lobby for the flight now. So His passing helped remind me that this is the lobby that we're in. We're all waiting for our flights. We don't know when it's going to get called. But by all means, let's not forget that this is just the lobby and that this work continues and that we are much more than bio bags that breathe air and excrete waste. The essence of us is eternal and divine. And we have to keep that at the center of our focus. And that's one of the enduring lessons that Ahati would impress upon me and that I will continue to embrace is not mistaking the lobby for the flight and working to share the love and light. Many people saw him as gruff and but he was a man of love. They say all revolutionaries are propelled by the emotion of love, true love for people and a desire for a better existence. And I will embrace that in life, that, you know, he was a man of love and he loved people so much that he would go hard in the paint. So I honor y'all and I look forward to meeting y'all, if not this weekend, in the future when I come over to UK or in our travels around the country.
Thank you. Just final words from
Yeah. I love you, Baba. I'm a greater woman because of him. I'm a greater mother. I'm a greater massage therapist. I'm a greater everything because of his work and sacrifice. I just ask that you all continue to move forward and stand in his powerful footsteps and on his shoulders and create new paths with this work and hold up the in the honor of the great man that he always will be. He's not going anywhere. He's right here with us in his greatest, most grandest form. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, Darren, do you have final words?
Yeah, sure, man. Hello? Hello?
We can hear you. I can hear you.
I can hear myself back, echoing also. But yeah, I just have to big up Kilindi, as the sister said, who's still present, still here, still with us, still inspiring. This wouldn't be happening, obviously, if it wasn't for him. He invited me to the Breaking Convention. I got no plug from nobody in the United Kingdom whatsoever about the Breaking Convention. It took this brother from Detroit who looked like me, who spoke my language, to inspire me to stand up and be counted. So I'm forever in debt to the brother for allowing me to liberate myself and giving me the technology that would allow me to do that without being like many other teachers could be, that one wants to put their arm around your shoulder and make you what they are and keep you. He really supported me in becoming, you know, he supported me in becoming. Simple as he supported me in becoming. I'm not even going to say a better version of myself. It's not even about, he just supported me in becoming. And I know that the work and the legacy continues. I'm very much disappointed and frustrated that I'm not going to be able to get to Detroit and support and be there and just be around the family and connect in the way that I personally would like to. But I know regardless, the work continues. We've got many more days and weeks and months and years to develop and build on the work that the brothers laid down. So I just want to thank you guys for just being a part of it, the Detroit family in Omolewa in Jamaica, Aimee for supporting us, just keeping this going by way of the Breaking Convention. You know, we're still planning to do the Pan-African forums. I basically was invited to create this forum of the Breaking Convention with only Kilindi in mind, because he was the only person who was speaking publicly about this subject from a Pan-African perspective. And then when I was like, bro, who else can we get? You know, he plugged me into Ayana and Moudou and Omolewa and the rest of the family. I really hope that we can keep this relationship with Breaking Convention and then others pick up on the value that the brothers bringing and, you know, and the people that can now continue in honoring his work and legacy. So, yeah, big up.
Thank you, Darren. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to organise everyone actually coming over in person for the next Breaking Convention, and we're hoping to do it next August, but dates are to be confirmed. So 2021 is our next big conference. And yeah, we have actually spoken as a committee that we would like to name one of the rooms, because all of the lecture theatres that we have are named after prominent figures in psychedelic research or psychedelic consciousness, and we have spoken that we want to name one of the rooms after Kilindi. However, they are all alliterative, so we just need to like one's called the Sabina Stage, Hoffman Hall. So we need something that means room or space that begins with a K or a Q or something like that. So if anyone's got any suggestions, we're open to that. Because of, you know, he's contributed greatly over the years. So I think the least we can do is name a room in his honour. But yeah, if people want to keep in touch with us, with each other, I'm just going to share my screen 1 second and just show you to the Breaking Convention website, so you can join our mailing list here, and you can find out, we've, you know, got all of our social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook. You can just go to the bottom here and get in touch: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And you can email us. This obviously gets updated next year. We'll return in 2021. We have a whole YouTube channel full of talks, which I should have got up, but it's a treasure trove of that. We've got hundreds of talks on there. So you can subscribe to our channel and watch all of the talks from the past conferences are on there. We will also be looking to edit this footage from this Zoom call, and we'll put that up too. This is Darren's website, darrenlebaron.com. So we'll just move this down, and this is all his upcoming events, how you can keep in touch. This is Omolewa's sweetserenity.co, all about her work. Ayana, do you have and Moudou, I'm not sure if you had websites. I was trying to get them up for you, but if not, jump in and let us know how we can contact you. I know you have Facebook groups. Omolewa has Entheogenic Midwife on Facebook, and this is the Detroit Psychedelic website, which is happening next weekend, which Ayana spoke about. So if either of you want to jump in and let us know how, if anyone wants to get in touch.
I'm just on Facebook at this time. I'm not Twitter savvy, and don't have an Instagram. I'm kind of a little slow with that. I need to get with the times, don't I? But you can reach me on Facebook, you know, Ayana Ife, I-F-E, Iyi, Ayana Ife Iyi. And if you reach out, you know, I'll reach back and we can stay in touch that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still learning how to be my social media together, but I do have a Twitter feed and a email at aten, ATEN education, 1 at Gmail. That's my Twitter feed and my email address. And I'm being prodded by folks such as my brother Darren to become a little more savvy. And I will be doing.
Brother. Come on, man.
I'm on it, man. So please be patient with me. But for now, that's how I can be contacted.
Amazing. Thank you. And also you can put it in the chat below there if anyone wants to exchange that. But I'll just quickly share. I've just got our YouTube channel up again, and we've got, hundreds of talks. So please subscribe here. This is what our channel looks like, and we've got all of these talks. Kilindi's got quite a few on there, so you can tune in. Loads and loads there. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for bearing with us with the tech issues. We got there in the end, and hopefully we'll get to see each other in person next August in London. And again, thank you to Ayana, Moudou and Omolewa, because I know how hard it is to speak publicly when going through what you're going through. So yeah, thank you all so much. I'll leave the chat window open for a little bit longer. And if you want to leave now, then feel free to. I'll just stay here for a little bit if anyone wants to exchange more info. But just a virtual round of applause. Thank you very much.